Why is the Bengal famine, a massacre done by the British, not much talked about, while the German concentration camps are criticized like anything? First of all, if the Germans had won, there would have been no talk of the concentration camps. They would never have existed. Secondly, why are the German concentration camps, the Nazi concentration camps, so criticized so much? Because the Americans who defeated the Germans made sure this is widely publicized so that it gave them the moral superiority over the Germans. Because the Americans also did terrible war crimes during the Second World War. I mean, war is a time in which you do terrible acts. And when you bombard civilian populations, that's a war crime. The Americans did plenty of that. The firebombing of Dresden, good God, it was an atrocity. Anyhow, the Americans ensured, the Americans and the British and the French, all the allies, they ensured that this gets a great deal of coverage in the press and the media everywhere. And rightfully so. The Germans were monsters for what they did, for the way they treated the Romani and the Jewish people. Terrible, terrible. I mean, they tried to wipe these people out from existence, from the face of the earth. So it is very rightfully criticized, and the Nazis are very rightfully vilified for what they did. They were absolute monsters, and that is something that can never be forgotten or forgiven. Now, why are the even larger massacres done by the British not talked about? Like I showed you just now, there was famine after famine. These were all artificially engineered famines. And at least 100 million Indians, that's 10 crores, at least, at the very, very minimum, at a conservative estimate, were killed by the British in these artificial famines. This is at least an order of magnitude worse than what the Germans did. This is a war. This is a crime against humanity by any measure, by any definition, and still we don't talk about it. And the last famine they did before they left was the Great Bengal famine, in which they say about 1.5 million people died. I think the actual figure is near 6 or 7 or 10 million, but we will use the official British figures to count it. The actual number, I think, is near 10 million. That's how many Bengalis died. Winston Churchill deliberately starved the Bengalis. All the resources were available, food, grains, everything. He had them shipped off to Europe to supposedly aid the war effort, the Second World War effort, because the Greeks and other people were fighting and the Indians were just sitting around. So he deliberately starved the Bengalis, and our great Mr. Mohandas Gandhi did not say a word about it. So the point is, the British atrocities, these crimes against humanities, are not talked about because A, our historians don't talk about it, B, our media doesn't talk about it, and C, because we are not aware of it. So unless we start talking about this in the open, in public, unless we start writing about it, unless our media and other media channels, etc., start talking about it, unless our historians publish books about this, and unless we make a big deal out of it, unless we publicize this vigorously, this will not be talked about. The West knows about what it's done. The atrocities and crimes of the West are unimaginable. What they did in Africa, what they did in North America, what they did in South America, and what they did in India and other parts of Asia. I mean, if you add up the death toll, it will exceed 1 billion. And you think it's ridiculous? No, it did not happen in 1 week or 1 year. It happened over centuries. So over centuries, if you add up the death toll, it will easily exceed 1 billion humans. So this is the price that colonialism extracted from humanity, and this squarely lies on the West. That's what they did to the rest of the world. So they know what they have done, and it is best for them that these things remain suppressed. So they will never talk about it. Their historians won't speak about it. If nowadays, if there is this change, this woke culture coming in, then some aspects may be discussed briefly, but they will not make a big hue and cry about it. So it is for us to start discussing these things. It is for us to start writing about these things. It is for our historians, if new historians were to emerge, to write about this, because the existing historians are all stooges of colonialism. So that's the reason why these incredible crimes against humanity are not spoken about.